Hey everybody, lesson 4, and what we're talking about here today is what happens to our culture and international relations the more things continue to change. And we know that America's culture and how Americans are feeling is all kinds of tumultuous, and really as 1956 approaches, that midpoint in the 1960s, what we're going to see here is that President Truman, a Democrat, decides not to run for president. He says, you know what, I'm not into it. He says, I need a break. Because Americans were really criticizing him for things that had happened on his watch. I mean, let's just take a look at this map, right? You can see here all kinds of things. We know the Soviet Union goes communist in 1917, but during President Truman's time in office, Eastern Europe goes communist. North Korea becomes communist. China goes communist. So really, Truman's idea of containment doesn't seem like it's doing us much work. Right? It seems like containment needs more development. It needs some changes to it. So the election in 1956 is going to be between a Republican, Dwight Eisenhower, like the Dwight Eisenhower, the former General Dwight Eisenhower, and another Democrat named Adlai Stevenson. And Eisenhower's going to win for a whole bunch of reasons, and you can see them listed there, right? Here's the general that comes in, who helps us win the Korean War, who helps us win World War II. He wants both a strong military and a strong economy. We're going to talk a lot about that today. But he also promotes nuclear weapons as a solution to our problems because you can get, as he says, more bang for your buck. Think about it like this, right? Truman, we know, had been using what you see right here, limited war, right? War with limited objectives, limited resources, but that also means wars will take longer to fight. This means that those wars are going to be too costly. They're going to be more expensive. If you're having trouble kind of understanding what I mean by that, take a look at this, right? Here is World War II. Incredibly expensive, right? Here's the pre-World War II spending on our military, all the way up there during World War II. As soon as World War II ends, down it goes. But then look what happens here. June 25th, 1950, North Korea invades the South, and that military spending goes up again. Now, North Korea is no Nazi party. North Korea is no Italian and no Japan. But it takes us 3 years to help bring that conflict to a close because we don't go all in. We only go half the way in. You see that? Limited resources committed, right? Limited objectives. This means that as the war comes to a close, we're going to see something have to happen to the economy because we can't keep affording to spend this much on our military and get nothing out of it, right? We have to get something out of it. So Eisenhower's going to come along and he's going to say, you know what? We want to get more bang for our buck. We should use nukes as an appropriate and effective military strategy. That's his idea. He says, we can't defend the nation in a way which will exhaust our economy. We've got to use nukes if we need to use nukes. So, as president, you see Eisenhower saying, we've got to figure out something to do here. We can't keep fighting these small wars, these limited wars. We've got to do something else. And he calls his new idea for containment massive retaliation. The idea of massive retaliation is that we will threaten a massive response against any communist advance. And here's the trick, and this part's important. You need to understand this. You use massive retaliation, you threaten nuclear war in order to prevent wars from starting. That's the idea. His belief here is that if you have nukes, you should be able to keep the peace. We don't need some giant army to keep the peace. What we need is the threat of nuclear weapons, and you can see that here, right? Just a workable peace, or else atomic bomb, Eisenhower's face. That's the idea. Let's prevent war by threatening nukes anytime the communists threaten to advance. And by doing this, Eisenhower can help keep military expenditures lower than what they were during the Korean War. That's his idea. Keep them lower. Let's have a strong economy and a strong military. Here's how Eisenhower puts it. Every gun that's made, every warship launched, every rocket fired, signifies in the final sense a theft from those who hunger and are not fed, those who are cold and not clothed. This world in arms is not spending money alone. It's spending the sweat of its laborers, the genius of its scientists, the hopes of its children. Eisenhower will cut significantly military spending in order to keep an economy strong and take care of the American people. That's his idea. His belief, then, is that our society should promote capitalism because rich Americans won't want communism. If the economy is doing well, Americans will do well, and we will reject communism. So, international relations, we see massive retaliation in a way to stop communist influence and prevent war. We see a cut in spending, but relying on nukes to keep the peace, and we see this promotion of capitalism. Let's delve into this a little bit further.